Alright, in this video we're going to be going over the difference between an independent and a subordinate clause. The definition of an independent clause, or it's also called a main clause, is that it expresses a complete thought and it can stand by itself as a sentence. Now the key word is can. It's not that it does stand by itself, it's that it can stand by itself. So if you can find a group of related words within a sentence, not necessarily the whole sentence that can stand alone, it is independent, or it is a main clause. So here's the example. I like Indian food. That could stand alone. Now there's a comma in this coordinating conjunction here, but this right here, this first section of bold words, I like Indian food, that could, it can stand by itself. So this is an independent clause. My sister prefers Chinese or Thai dishes. That also can stand by itself. It doesn't, it has this comma and a conjunction here, but it could, if it wanted to, stand alone as a sentence. It expresses a complete thought and it can stand alone. Alright, a subordinate or dependent clause, there's another name for it, does not express a complete thought and cannot stand by itself as a sentence, but it will have both a subject and a verb. All clauses have subjects and verbs. So here we have before Tim arrived. Tim is the subject, arrived is a verb, and in fact, if we were to get rid of the word before, we would have an independent clause. But the word before, this right here, makes this not a complete thought. Before Tim arrived, what? What? We don't know. So the meaning of a subordinate clause, and subordinate is another way to say servant. So these clauses are servants. They serve a master clause, a main clause. The meaning of a subordinate clause becomes clear only when the subordinate clause is combined with an independent clause. These kind of clauses, these dependent clauses, are they must have a master clause. They must have an independent clause that gives it meaning. So the example, before Tim arrived, we had washed 10 cars. So we had washed 10 cars, that is a main or independent clause. Before Tim arrived doesn't have any meaning without it. So this is a complete servant. It only exists to tell us when. This is an adverb clause. So let's do some of the exercise below. So what we have to do in this exercise is classify each one as being either a subordinate clause, an SC, or an IC, independent clause. So in number one, the first group of related words, who were known in Spanish history as the Moors. Well, that doesn't complete a thought. It couldn't stand alone as a sentence, but it does have a subject, who, and a verb, were known. So this is an SC. It is a subordinate clause that cannot stand alone, and it is an adjective clause. It is an adjective clause because it describes the word Muslims. Number two, Moorish Spain, which is known as Andalusia. Which is known as Andalusia could not stand alone as a sentence, so this is a subordinate clause. This clause describes Moorish Spain, so it is also an adjective because it describes a noun. It tells us more about Moorish Spain. Number three, when Al-Hakam II became caliph or ruler, a renaissance of learning took place. In this sentence, a renaissance of learning took place that could stand alone. So I'm going to write IC, which stands for independent clause. Now, independent clauses won't be used as adjectives, adverbs, or nouns. They are independent. They just stand alone. Number four. In addition, Andalusia's economy expanded as agriculture, mining, and industry all made strides forward. As agriculture, mining, and industry all made strides forward, this can't stand alone. This is a subordinate clause. And in this case, these words tell us about the expansion. It describes expanded. So this is an adverb because it's describing an adverb. I'm sorry, it's describing a verb here. So this is an adverb clause. And number 5, Andalusia set up trade with North Africa. That could stand alone as a sentence, so this is an independent clause. All right, so here are your answers. Go ahead and try the last 5 on your own. What you're looking at is the underlined words. If the underlined words can't stand alone, it is a subordinate clause. If they can stand alone, it is an independent clause. Good luck.